Love it or hate it, this past decade was dominated by the superhero genre, and that is what I'm talking about today. I'm sharing with you all my top 10 comic book movies, superhero movies of the past decade. So put on your cape, put on your mask, and let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Elliot back again, talking about my top 10 comic book superhero movies of the past decade. Super excited to talk about this with you all today. But before we dive into it, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that bell so you can stay up to date with my latest movie reviews, TV reviews, unboxings, and giveaways, and all the fun things we do on this very channel. And this is a video with no right, no wrong answers. It's just a video that I am excited to share with you all my list. So let me know your favorite movies of the decade, your top 10, your top 5, your number 3, your number 2, your number 1. Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. We're here to celebrate the genre, and I'm here to talk about it with you all today. I'm very excited to do so. So with that being said, before I jump into my number 10 movie of the decade for the superhero genre, let's talk about some honorable mentions. So some films that came to mind that didn't quite make the cut is X-Men Days of Future Past, Chronicle, Scott Pilgrim, Thor Ragnarok, and a film that almost made the cut, and, you know, like it or love it, BVS, The Ultimate Edition, a film that was very close to making my list but didn't quite make the cut. So let's start off this list here with my number 10 favorite comic book movie of the decade, and that is 2016's Captain America Civil War. First and foremost, I think that's the best trilogy thus far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this was a great cap off. This is the last time we're seeing Steve Rogers as Captain America. I thought, in regards to this trilogy, I thought that it was a great send-off to the character. We had one of the coolest scenes before, obviously, Endgame and Infinity War, in regards to a 17-minute action-packed airport scene with our favorite heroes battling each other. We got, it set the tone for what's to come in the later films in the MCU, because the Avengers broke up. They couldn't come to terms. Who were you on? Whose side were you on? Tony or Cap? I'm always Team Cap, so I took Captain America's side. But even with all the action and the suspense and the great character moments, at the end of the day, the last scene was just a hand-to-hand brawl between Captain America and Iron Man, Tony Stark, and I love that scene. I love the movie, and it is the Russo brothers at their best. The follow-up to Civil War or to Winter Soldier, and I thought it was just an excellent film, and I love Civil War, and definitely made my cut. So on to my number 9, jumping on the cross up the pond from the MCU to the DC universe. And this was a film that was initially supposed to start it all, right? And that is 2013's Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I'm just going to say it right off bat. If you all have followed me and been watching my Instagram videos, or whenever I talk about Henry Cavill, he is my favorite Superman. No disrespect to Christopher Reeves or any other of the characters or the actors that played the character Kal-El, but Henry Cavill, he just embodies the character to me, and I thought that his portrayal in Zack Snyder's script, it was different. It took the mythos, and not necessarily mythos, but it took the Boy Scout type of persona of Superman and injected him into what if Superman was on Earth in today's climate, with social media, with the news, with people and how they feel about people of power. So I just thought that story was great. Yes, he killed Zod at the end. Yes, he didn't know who he was, but that was supposed to be the beginning of a trilogy of Zack Snyder's vision from BVS, into Justice League, and then into Man of Steel 2 that we haven't even got an announcement yet. But I'm a big fan of Man of Steel. I was a fan since I saw it first day, and it just grew on me ever since, and it's one of my favorite films in the comic book genre, and not in just the decade, but of all time. I love Men of Steel, and that is my number 9 on the list here. So in the same universe, in a film that definitely has a great critical response and audience response, and has a sequel coming out in 2020, and that is 2017's Wonder Woman. We all had our doubts about Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and Patty Jenkins, she hasn't directed a film in so long, and the DC universe is kind of shaky, but boy, did 2017 light a fire under us in delivering Wonder Woman, a film that I love. Yes, it has its issues with the third act, but the fish out of water with Diane, and her and Chris Pine's chemistry was great, and I'm just so excited to see more of her journey, and seeing Gal Gadot, who again, very similar to, I think, Henry Cavill embodies the character. I think Gal Gadot is a Wonder Woman in real life. I think she's such a great person. I haven't met her, but I'd love to meet her. Gal, let's make an appointment to hang out sometimes. But I think the movie's fantastic, and I'm very excited to see Wonder Woman 84, and that is my number 8 film on the list. On to my number 7. That is 2014's, the film that wasn't supposed to work. You got a talking raccoon, a talking tree, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy, a film about family, a film about people that don't supposed to be together, figuring it out and working together and defeating evil in Ronin. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my favorite films in MCU, one of the funniest films, one of the most heartfelt films. I remember that scene with Peter and his mom, and it's just such a great film. And James Gunn bringing in his flavors to the MCU, and obviously he's back for part 3. I'm very excited for that whenever we get that in the next year or two. But Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014, again, a film that wasn't supposed to work on paper. A talking raccoon, a talking tree. Who are these characters? You know, why are we focusing on these B-list, C-list superheroes? We're supposed to talk about the Avengers, but fast forward, the Guardians, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting group of characters in the cinematic universe, and I'm so excited to see their journey continue into part 3. But it all started with 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, my number 7 on my list. So on to my number 6. That is 2014's, another Russo brother film, and you're going to hear a lot of the Russos on this list, but that is Captain America Winter Soldier, a film that to me really took the MCU into another atmosphere in regards to, it didn't stick to the tropes. It was a political thriller, obviously with superhero elements, but I love the journey that Cap went through, dismantling S.H.I.E.L.D., going out on his own, Nick Fury, Black Widow, finding out more about Natasha. Obviously, we got the introduction of Falcon, who's now the new Captain America, get more of Bucky's story. I just love that film. It's still to date. I love that. It's one of my favorite hand-to-hand combat scenes of all time, and that is when Cap and Bucky, when they see each other for the first time, and or besides that scene on the roof, but obviously Cap didn't know who that was, but that fight in the streets of Ohio was so awesome. It reminded me of Jason Bourne in the MCU, and I just love that scene. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites in the MCU. It's one of my favorites by the Russo brothers, and I thought that it's one of the best sequels of all time, in my opinion. I love Winter Soldier, and that's my number 6. Before I jump into my top 5, definitely subscribe to my channel, hit that bell so you can stay up to date with my content, and again, let me know your comments, your thoughts, your list in the comments below. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. We're just celebrating this awesome genre that I love, and that is comic book superheroes. So let's jump into my top 5 here. So my number 5 is a recent movie which came out in 2019, and that is Todd Phillips' Joker, a film that had all the controversy leading up to it. It was supposed to be the most talked about film in regards to negativity because of what it was going to tackle, and I end up loving that film. The performance by Joaquin Phoenix, the direction of Todd Phillips, they definitely, the way that they came together and kind of, I don't want to say ad-lib, but you hear the stories of how Todd Phillips and Joaquin worked on set, where the script was constantly being revised on the day of the shoot. I love the kind of the arc that we get with Arthur Fleck. Yes, it's a very sensitive topic, a very a subject matter that a lot of people don't like to talk about in regards to mental health and kind of the what happened with Arthur Fleck. And Todd Phillips and Joaquin, they're not condoning violence, but it was just a story and kind of a man who was beaten by society and had a rough life, and kind of we saw him become the Joker. So it is one of my favorite films of 2019, and definitely one of my favorite films of this decade. I really enjoyed this film, and I'm really interested to see what the DC universe does with this approach of focusing on an individual character and not necessarily tying him into the universe. I love the Joker character, and excited to see what they do with this. If they're going to make more, of Todd Phillips is going to spin off and do other things, but this is the film that started all, and we're going to remember this film in 10 to 15 years, what the Joker did and what it changed as far as the climate of the superhero genre, and maybe being nominated. We'll see what happens this Oscar season, but that's my number 5. On to my number 4. 2018's Black Panther. I know it's got a lot of, over the years, people have kind of downed it and criticized it. And yes, it has its flaws. The CGI in the third act isn't as strong as the first two. But I'm going to go ahead and say it, man. This film connected to me personally. Yes, I'm black. So it was incredible to see this cast of the black actors and Ryan Coogler stepping up as a director, and, what it did at the box office, what it did to young boys and girls, black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, the seeing that on screen to me is just so great. And then you put the icing on the cake that is actually a good film, in my opinion. Yes, like I said, the third act isn't as strong as the first two acts, and the CGI is a little, here or there at the end of the movie, but besides that, the message in the story, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, Chadwick Boseman, and the entire cast. I love that film. Can't wait to see what they do with T'Challa, with Wakanda in the sequel. If we're going to get a Namor, if we're going to get Doctor Doom in the sequel. But number 4 on my list is Black Panther, just because it is a great movie in my opinion, one of the best in the MCU, and just a great film in general. But it also what it meant to the landscape and what it meant to me personally is my number 4. So on to my number 3, another film that came out that same year of 2018, my favorite Spider-Man movie to date, and that is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the most surprising film that year to me, one of the most surprising films of the decade, because I just thought it was going to be another animated film. We all know the history of Sony, kind of hit or miss with their comic book movies, whether it be the Sam Raimi Spider-Man or, what we got with Andrew Garfield, and then obviously the MCU. I love Tom Holland in this role, but it's just been kind of, up in the air, right? But Spider-Verse, man, was such a fantastic story. Miles Morales meeting Peter Parker. I'm excited to see what they do in the future with Gwen Stacy and incorporating those other Spider characters. And I just love this film from top to bottom. It has heart. It's funny. It has great action set pieces. It's a phenomenal animated film, and I just cannot stop thinking about the film. I love it. I watch it at least once a month because I just love that film so much, and that is my number 3 film on my list. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I'm very excited to see what they do. I believe, what was it, 2021 or 2022 when the next was coming out? Cannot wait for that film. But number 2 on my list is a film that was a film predicated on the success of Deadpool, which I forgot to mention was on my honorable mentions, but we're talking about 2017's Logan, rated R. It's raw, it's gritty, it's violent, it's Hugh Jackman's swan song into playing, Wolverine for, 20 years, 10 plus movies dedicated to the role, and this was a great kind of a farewell to that character. It's emotional. I love the relationship between X-23 and Wolverine, and obviously the relationship between, the father and son relationship between the Professor X and Wolverine. Like I said, the grittiness, the violence of the film, the message of the film, and the ending is so tragic. I love that film. It was a Western kind of meets superhero movie. It had its superhero tropes at times, but not much. It was really just a film about a man coming to, the end of his days and the end of his life and coming up, having his regrets, and then having this daughter that he has to guide into the world. I love Logan, and that is why it's my number 2 film on my list. So on to my number 1 film. Kind of a loophole, but it's my list, so it is what it is. My number 1 film, superhero comic book movie of the decade, is a mixture of a little bit of A1, AB, and that is Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. What can I say about this film that I haven't already on my channel for all the reviews and all the comments I've had over the past 2 years of this movie? For starting off with Infinity War, which personally I actually like Infinity War more than Endgame, but it set the stage for what we got in Endgame, which to me is one of the most satisfying endings of any superhero comic book movie. In that last act of the Endgame, that last hour was just so emotional. I remember crying at the end of the movie when Tony dies, having tears of joy, being a geek of seeing Spider-Man and Black Panther and the Guardians and Cap picking up Thor's hammer and them going against Thanos. So many beautiful shots. But it is just a film that I cannot deny what it did to the culture in regards to superhero climate, what it did to the box office, obviously in Endgame being the highest grossing film of all time. And then, like I said, Infinity War is just such a fun film. It just goes from A, it just goes to Z. We're here, we're there. We're seeing interactions of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and the Guardians, Tony meeting the Guardians. And like I said, the most satisfying ending to me in this chapter. And then we're obviously going into phase 4 and phase 5, but I thought Endgame was phenomenal. And that's why Infinity War and Endgame are my number 1 films of the last decade in the superhero genre. So again, that's my list, guys. Thank you all for watching this video. Like, share, comment below. Let me know your top 10, your top 5, your top 3, your number 1 superhero movie in the decade. Let's have some fun discussions down there. Follow me on all my social media accounts. Check out my top 10 horror films of the decade, as well as my last reviews I've done in the past year. And then coming pretty soon, I got my bucket list for the new year. I got my top 10 list coming out pretty soon of 2019 and my most anticipated movies of 2020. So keep an eye out for those videos. Thank you all for watching this review, and we'll see you in the next video.